Welcome back to the Building Blocks of Life. I am your psychedelic psychopomp, Quetzalcoatl Calloway, and you are tapping into the root of the symmetry so you can tune in to the mind of Mercury and learn more about the spiritual significance behind the rainbow. Specifically, my updated version of Roy G. Biv, Roy G. Biv, BB. So far, we've learned that you, as an individual space, are creating a unique awareness that makes it possible for you to observe life. And your life is how your awareness connects with all the unique awarenesses outside of your space. And your awareness can only connect with other forms of awareness outside of your space through vibrating structures. This is where we get earth coming out of water, the idea of bodies coming out of souls. So you as a space, once you become aware of your circumstance, you create an idea of yourself. This is your imaginary God ego. And then when you feel connected with that idea, you create a soul. And once you have your ego and your soul, now you can build a mind. You can express your mind consciously, which will then allow you to communicate in a way that is relatable. And the most relatable structure is the body. So now this is why we are all using our minds to relate on the body. And thus, all the relationships that you have are you as a spirit observing your individual fire and water, your individual ego and your individual soul, and then communicating that through a mind that people can then see structured into a body, like I'm doing right now, like you're doing right now. Again, this is how we build reality microscopically, constantly, consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, every second that we are able to experience something first. Of course, the light that you use to express yourself, which is your awareness, your ego, your imagination, the ultimate idea of your space, does not actually matter if it's not vibrating. So this is where we get the idea of your ego being your frequency and your soul being your vibration. And then energy, your mind, is the matter. So your mind is the energy that's always expanding your body. Literally, think about how your body matters. That's a number 4. Your mind, as a number 3, is the energy that is always making your body matter. So once you make up your mind, your body matters more, doesn't it? Now you can build a more structured life. And then this is all still you vibrating. Your heart is still beating, so that's your soul. And because your heart is beating, your ego can be aware of not only its internal space, but the external space that you have chosen to build a body inside of. So, boom, all that right there, we can see how you are God. Because you, as an individual space, had to create this circumstance where you could connect with another individual space and even be able to be convinced that you weren't God or that you weren't the creator of your life. So your soul makes your ego real. Otherwise, your ego, as the frequency, does not have a vibration to make it matter. If somebody's ego is not vibrating at a certain frequency, it doesn't exist. This is why we can't see each other's egos, but we know what the ego is because it's literally the psychological identification of self. So the whole point of the ego is, again, the highest idea of yourself. So this is why ego and God are the same thing. And this is why when artists say that they're God, most of the corporate world or people programmed by religions will say that they're in their ego because they have no better words. They have no better words to talk about spirituality. The point is, you as a spiritual space are the egotistic God that wants to connect with other egotistic gods. This is why your imagination is infinitely individual and thus unrelatable. You have to make it relatable. And we make our imaginations relatable by connecting with imaginations outside of ourselves, which then looks like elements. So your imagination is fire, is what you see when you're alone with yourself. But water is what allows you to see other people's fire, and it's what allows other people to see your fire. But no one else can ever actually see your fire, and you can never actually see someone else's fire because no one can see your imagination, and you can't see other people's imaginations. So this is where we have to use water to connect so that we can communicate. And that's how we get fire, water, and then air. So now air is all of our minds, like we're doing right now, all of our minds communicating about our imaginations. which is us actively expanding our bodies. So we're actively building our bodies just by communicating about our imaginations. And then depending on the vibration that we feel when we are connecting with and observing our imagination, that's going to dictate how we communicate it into the matter that we are using to experience life. So when you know that life is intentionally creative like this, now you can see why each color has a certain meaning behind it, because each color represents a space transitioning through light. And the whole point of light is to give movement and emotion to the imagination. So that's color. There we go. The whole point of light is to give movement and motion to the imagination. The whole point of color is to make the imagination way more pleasurable and actually multifaceted. Imagine if you were actually just in a world that was all one color, right? So really, if I were to correct myself real quick a little bit, the point of light is to architect reality, and the point of color is to add emotion to reality, because the light is the actual substance that we are building things out of, and then once those things are a certain color, that represents the emotional frequency at which that light is vibrating. So if something is vibrating at the color of green, then it is vibrating at the emotion of structure. Whereas if something is vibrating at the color of red, right, it's vibrating at the emotion of individuality. If something is vibrating at the color of orange, it's vibrating at the emotion of connection. Yellow, more about communication. And this is where it's about the energies, right? Because energy isn't necessarily emotion. We know that emotion is vibration. Energy is how you communicate your emotion, which is really you combining your emotion with a certain intention. So if you're not combining your emotions with a certain intention, you're not creating energy to communicate that into existence. So we can all have different feelings about green. We all have different feelings about yellow. We all have different feelings about orange. We all have different feelings about red. But because they are consistently in relationship with one another, we do have a pattern of emotional movement, a pattern of emotional recognition psychologically when we are interacting with these colors. So that is the point of this whole series. So much that we have already been able to learn from the world through these past episodes based on extrapolating the way that energies play out through colors and how these colors are connected by how we all communicate, basically. And these colors affect how we communicate. Light affects how we communicate, and we use light to communicate. So it's this two-way street. We use colors to communicate, and colors impact how we communicate. So this is why it's important to be aware of the environment that you're in and to make sure that you are living in an environment that is communicating to you colors which raise your vibration, right? That would be like if you live out in nature or out in a colorful indigenous type land. Those colors are raising your vibration. The light in that environment is making you feel better, so you're going to be healthier because you're more at ease. Whereas if you're in like a white supremacist Masonic corporate environment, all those dull tones, those are lowering your vibration. All the colors inside of a corporate office, inside of a workplace, they're beating your vibration down and making you feel duller and duller and duller. And the whole point is to depress you and really make you sicker so that the medical industry can use Callaway's caduceus to make a lot of money exacerbating the health problems that they're using the environment to create inside of you. It's pretty messed up. Visit chaserjeans.com if you want to heal yourself. But just know the point is make sure that your environment is supporting your space, because the environment is where your space is connected to. So if you as a spirit are observing that you don't like the way your environment is making you feel, this is the point of spirituality, to know that you can change your environment from the inside out. So in Woiji Biv BB, we know that 0 is white, because white is the first light that space uses to separate itself from nothingness. So before there is a spirit, there's a space. A spirit is a space becoming aware that it has a space. So white is the color of all light separating out, all light. So all the light spectrum, okay, this is what white represents, how it is separating out of space, out of nothing into something. And this something is separate from all of the nothing around it. So this is where white is all about setting up the circumstance so that the ego can be expressed. And then we know one is red. Red is the color of individuality, and it represents how your ego is very passionately expressing its infinite individuality from the inside of your body. So all of our blood is red because we all have very fiery, passionate, egotistic imaginations that are manipulating our bodies from the inside out right now. The only reason I'm able to move is because my ego is intentionally communicating through my soul so that we can build a mind that manipulates this body. Okay, so it's a lot of stuff that my spirit isn't observing when it's looking at my imagination, and then it has a whole soul, it has all these emotions about it, and then it's choosing to connect its certain emotions with parts of its imagination so that it can build all these triangles, and these triangles are my mind. That's my Merkaba, constantly transforming. And then my body represents that. My body literally reflects how my mind is constantly trying angles to transform through reality. And this transformation builds a family of cells that allows me to transform. And now I can actually create and communicate with you. So that was literally 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the whole point of red, your ego, is knowing that you're so passionate about your infinite individuality that only you can see it. Only you can frequently see your own imagination. So no one else will ever be able to truly see or connect with your idea of God, because everyone is busy connecting with themselves and their own idea of God. And thus the whole point of religion is to try and connect all of our ideas of God. But this is then where you get a bunch of people reading one book, and they all have their own interpretations of it, and then they all start going to war over it, and then they all end up fighting because they all have their individual idea of God anyway, but they're trying to use this one creation to manage it and control everything. Doesn't work really too much, as we've historically seen. There's a lot of examples. So 2 is orange. 2 is orange because orange is comfortable. All right. So when you think about 2, think of connection. Everyone desires connections to be comfortable. And then this is where, when you want to level up, you have to get comfortable with discomfort. You become comfortable with uncomfortability. If you're someone who likes to work out a lot, you know what I'm talking about. If you're someone who pushes your bodies to limits to be able to level up, fasting especially, you know what I'm talking about. You become comfortable with uncomfortability. And by becoming comfortable with uncomfortability, you start to expand your life, because now we're getting into that phrase, life begins outside the comfort zone. And hermetically, that super works here because we know that death is actually the comfort zone and life is the uncomfortable zone, because death is a soul and life is the body. Your soul is comfortable because when you're connecting with yourself alone, you're always good. You're never being pulled apart from yourself. You're never stressed out. You're in heaven, hermetic heaven, alone. The moment your soul builds a body to feel connected with other souls so we can all relate in an environment like this, now we're getting pulled apart by all these systems. Now we're getting stressed out by the world that we decided to build a body inside of, and this is where we start to get uncomfortable, and that's literally life, right? So objectively, just spiritually, just giving you perspective on why life does begin outside of the comfort zone. The point of orange is to make the comfort zone relatable. So this is now why orange is a very pleasing color. It's a very appetizing color. Orange can make people hungry. And orange in general is just about being comfortable with friends. So when you connect with infinite individuals, when we want all of our red fires to be able to interact, we create orange. And that orange is like us sitting in a nightclub, all seeing each other as infinitely passionate, fiery individuals, but we're able to see each other inside of one space. So it's like all of our fires are creating one campfire where we can connect all of our imaginations and we can dance together. That's the idea of orange. And then 3 is yellow. The color that one space uses to communicate its infinite individuality from the internal to the external. So yellow, being 3, is all about being seen as the chi, being seen as the me, being seen as the Metatron star. In general, it's about being seen as a star. Okay, and that's why yellow is the ultimate color for stars. It's the color that just represents pure communication of light. And this is where yellow then becomes green. As I look outside right now, my whole life, I naturally see how the yellow light of the sun is communicated out from that star, from that body of water, into this body of water, and then it's all structured into bodies that are green. And all these green bodies are able to hold on to the light and transform it into something that sustains life. And this is then where we get green turning into blue. And now we can learn that green as 4 is the structure that holds on to starlight so that it can become a solid, stable body. And then blue as 5 shows us that all of these solid, stable bodies that are created out of starlight are transforming into water. So we're actually building our bodies out of water, and our bodies are transforming into water. Thus, death is transformation and water is death. And this is why this white supremacist, light supremacist, Masonic banking New World Order that we're in right now hates water. They actively poison water. America loves to poison its water. It's because it's a toxically masculine system that glorifies fire. So when they were listening to Zarathustra speak like I am now about the elements, they took it as, okay, fire good, water bad. And now they're causing climate change because they're obsessed with projecting their good fire out and being seen as superheroes for saving you from water that they intentionally poison with their pharmaceutical medications and carcinogens and other cancer-causing chemicals. It's gnarly. They go deep with it. But hey, somehow they've built a matrix that's been working. But this is the point, okay? Now you know that starlight as 3, as yellow, is all of us as spirits becoming stars by communicating our consciousness outward. And that's you being a child of God. And then your body is you structuring your child of God into something that actually allows you to be seen. Otherwise, your mind won't be seen without a body. And then this is where once you have your mind building a body, now that body is transforming through reality so you can build a family. So 5 is blue relating to family. This is why Facebook is blue, because Facebook is family book. And they're colonizing family. They're stealing all the information that they can from families and turning families against each other because, again, this is just all Metatron's wisdom that they've stolen from Mercury. So 5 being blue represents how water kills the ego because your soul kills your imagination. And what that means is that although your soul does give life to your imagination, see, it's a paradox the way water works. That's why I named Anubis Paradox. I named my dog Paradox as we're evolving into symmetry now, right? Tehuti and Anubis became Chase and Max. Now Chase and Max, Paradox and Symmetry. Water is a paradox because water gives life to fire. Otherwise, fire won't exist. It'll be alone. But at the same time, water kills fire. And that's where you get steam. Okay, so water has to kill fire so it can actually become the mind. This is literally always the alchemy. That's why water is a paradox. Do you understand? I think you understand. If you don't understand, you can rewind and you will understand because it is literally that. You cannot experience life as your ego. You have to experience life as your mind. So the moment you feel like experiencing your ego, you do have to kill yourself and experience yourself as the mind. So killing yourself simply means that you are not going to actually experience your ego. This is why our egos, this is the ultimate thought, the highest idea of ourselves, the highest idea of who we are, this imagination. Us experiencing that is really just us making our imagination as relatable as possible. Otherwise, we're going to experience it. And experiencing it literally just means that we're going to be able to reflect upon our own imagination, but we're not going to relate upon it with others in the external world. So this is why nature is all about making compromises, even, right? All of our imaginations are so infinitely individual that if we create a circumstance where we could just express all that all the time, that's a that's more like the astral realm. There's realities like that, but the point is things would be transforming way more. Things would be way more fiery. Things would be way more fractally. Things would be much faster. Things would be more chaotic. Uh, it wouldn't be an Earth life. Like, the point is, we call this place Earth because we enjoy how it's stable, we enjoy how it's practical, we enjoy how grounded light is here. Point is, if you want to enjoy life on Earth like we do here, like we are right now, then your spirit, your space, has to use its soul to kill its ego so that its mind can experience itself as a body. Your ego cannot experience itself as a body. This is why I, as Metatron, I, as Symmetry, I, as Ahura Mazda, am letting you know that your Merkaba, your mind, is the chi area of God. So, as the chariot of God, your mind is letting your ego sit in its space. And that seat represents your soul then. So, think of the God sitting as your ego, and the chair itself is the soul. So, your soul, all of your feelings, all of your emotions, build this structure that supports your imagination. And now, once your imagination can sit down into your soul, you're able to try a bunch of angles that make your Merkaba, and this is your mind communicating how you feel about what you imagine internally. And this is how we build realms every day, consistently, just day in and day out. So this is the wisdom of water right here. Water, being 5, is transformation. And when we know that our souls are water and our ego is fire, now we can see why when the Freemasons steal all their information from Zoroaster, they want to paint that fire is good and water is bad. It represents how they believe that the ego is good and the soul is bad. So now they believe that men are good and women are bad. Now you can see why Europe, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, those religions, like, it justifies so much hatred against women. And they're so toxically masculine because they fundamentally stole Zoroastrian teachings, which were about elements, and they were about how we are all children of God, and they weaponized it to make you a slave to your desires and to just brainwash you to hate yourself. So there's many details of that, and that's all those religions. So this is why water is a paradox. It forces you to kill your imagination, to compromise your imagination, so that you can actually create this circumstance where you see it become real with other individuals. That is the whole paradox of water. That's the paradox of your soul. So think about how beautiful and awesome it is that you can hang out and build a family with all of these individuals that you love and find so awesome. But then also know that if you were actually able to express anything you wanted at any time, you would almost certainly be so unrelatable, you could not have built the circumstance up to even manifesting that family or manifesting that group of people. So this is the whole point of the soul. The soul teaches us that we have to make compromises if we want to relate our individuality with individuals outside of ourselves. And this is just how the vibration works to make the frequency energy. And why all superpowers are possible through energy, but you do have to practice this alchemy of knowing how the vibration is the compromise and the frequency itself is the intention. So when you have an intention that you just want to see and you do not budge on it at all, you're like, no, I want this to happen. It will very well not happen because you're not adding the compromise energy, which would be your vibration. When you're able to use your soul, your vibration, to actually bring life to your intention and compromise with it, this is how you're actually going to move like water and work to make your imagination a reality. So it's not about compromising in the way of ignoring your dreams. It's literally just about being realistic in terms of being relatable. Again, there's different vibrational frequencies to how you can relate. So just because, let's bring this to a 3D level, right? if you want to travel the world and someone's telling you that you need to sit in an office and work a job, if your imagination is traveling the world and changing the world with your art, but someone's like, no, you need to sit in this company and work a job until you're 50, until you're 60, until you're dead. You need to work for someone else that you don't know, that you've never seen until you're dead. Don't work for yourself. Well, that witchcraft could work on you if you really feel like your soul is supposed to make the compromise of serving a space outside of yourself instead of yourself. But if you're an infinite individual and you know that you have an infinitely individual indigenous imagination, then you know that you are the only space that can create your imagination from the inside out. So now that you know that that's your power, it is now your subconscious Spider-Man responsibility to actually connect with your imagination even deeper and bring it to life. So then this is where you would start to work more with yourself. And that's just, again, this is the paradox water energy. You can either apply your emotions outside of yourself or inside of yourself. Either way, you're going to be bringing someone's fire to air. You're going to be communicating someone else's idea into existence. So this is the whole, just wisdom, like infinite lesson of knowing that anytime you're communicating about ideas that you did not create, you are using your soul to compromise on your imagination. So now instead of being completely, infinitely, individually aware of yourself, you're choosing to kill your awareness of your own imagination so that you can be aware of other spirits' imaginations. Because you know, the more you become aware of other spirits' imaginations, you can use this light to express your imagination. And this is why we're able to speak languages. This is why we're able to transform light into anything that means anything, and why I'm making this series in the first place. So fire represents life because fire is what all of us want to see. Water represents death because water kills what we want to see so that we see what we need to see. And then this is where what we want and what we need balance out into our consciousness. So now you know that, okay, consciously, I need water, but I want fire. And that literally looks like in life, us as humans right now, especially living in this world, where we're constantly using fire to transform reality, but we're not really drinking water nearly as much as we should be. Like, this is how deep we've gotten into having these energies weaponized against us. Humans are so deeply lost in believing that the soul is bad and that the ego is good, that they would rather not consume water, but consume all the things that fire has transformed water into, like Monster energy drinks, or soda, or coffee, or any copious amount of liquids that are not nearly as good for you as basic water. But none of these liquids would exist if they did not use water as a base. See, so water is the basis of life, because we all have to compromise for all of our infinitely individual ideas of God to connect with each other in the first place. So then this is just where now bodies of water look like fire, and they can teach us that they look like fire, because the point of water coming together is so all of us as spaces can express our fire. So from here, we have the sixth color in Woiji Biv BB, indigo. As a sixth color, indigo is indigenous. Why? Well, indigenous peoples create nature by having six from the inside out. This is everything that I have just covered in these last minutes. It's all about how you, as an indigenous individual, bring life to your infinite imagination by having sex from the inside out. And that sex looks like your ego, which is your man, doing this, just getting it on with your soul, which is your woman. So now your mind can become a child of God. So literally, you are the child of God. Zoroastrianism is letting you know you are the child of God. God is your spirit. And really, your space is your spirit. Your observer is your spirit. Then your spirit creates God. So you imagine God. That's your ego. And then your ego needs to create a woman that would allow it to actually exist. So this is the idea of God creating the universe so God can connect with other gods, because this is what we all do to connect with each other. All of us as individual gods create individual universes, which is our soul. And then once we have our own soul, we can now create this Merkaba from combining ourselves internally. And this Merkaba, our mind, is us trying all the angles that make nature work. Now we can see how everything, all the structures in nature are based in math, triangles, fractals, all the number stuff we have on Chase Your Genes, everything, because it's all Metatron math at that point. It's all magic at that point. Magic math, literally at that. It's very awesome. It's very beautiful, but it makes sense, and it consistently makes sense in all realms and realities. So indigenous peoples are simply people who know that they are the ones creating life by having sex first internally, then externally. This is why you don't see indigenous cultures going out of their way to conquer and rape or consume or cannibalize or harm other people. They are happy alone. That's the core meaning of being indigenous. So the European Freemasons who came and invaded America, they paint stories about how indigenous peoples are evil because that is the lie that they're using to justify all the evils that they brought to indigenous individuals. Indigenous individuals already had North, South, and Central America very abundant and popping. So when Europeans are coming over claiming that they discovered this land and there is nothing here, that's all blatant lies. Quetzalcoatl can clearly let you know through all the architecture here that those are blatant lies. Very blatant lies. They're actively lying. And the reality shows, like, well, but all this architecture that you don't understand was built by indigenous peoples that you're claiming you discovered, but you're the one who stole their civilization from them? What? This is literally how Jesus has made America's the land of the great, land of the free, right? So this was actually land of the free. The point is, all Europeans could do was weaponize what indigenous individuals, what Quetzalcoatl and Zalot, all right, what Anubis and Tehuti have set up over here based on everything in Europe and Africa. So this is now where you can see that the pyramids in Europe and Africa and the pyramids in Mesoamerica are all connected by Atlantis. And really the pyramids, all the pyramids on this planet are connected by Atlantis. They're connected by the soul group spiritual family transitioning through water, building structures through all the processes that I have shared with you in this video. Again, using your mentally Metatron Merkaba to try your mind's angles. So now all these angels of God can send messages through your nervous system. And this is where your nervous system builds bodies. And now you can manipulate the bodies that your nervous system's connected to. And we are all gods trying angles that send out angels to create a nervous system that allows us to build a symmetry where we can experience life through these bodies. And again, this is just all health. Now when I say symmetry, you can see that your nervous system literally looks like a tree. It really looks like a symmetry. It just is constantly branching out trees. Okay, so these bodies are trees. And this is where it's important for us to truly know that we are creating life from the inside out, because this country, all of Masonic America that's been stolen from Atlantean America, was built to oppress you. But they're oppressing you with the truth that they've stolen from the indigenous peoples who were already free before Europeans came over and wanted to stay. So it seems that anyone who does not identify as indigenous, which is literally white people, okay, for lack of better words, their whole point of Freemasons and these Europeans creating the term white is to erase indigenous individuality and make us all black, make us all be lack, the nature that they're stealing from us. White people, because they believe that they are zero, they believe that they are separate from all circumstances outside of themselves, they believe that they are allowed to use everyone to serve their own desires. So now when they come into an indigenous land that Quetzalcoatl sets up for all of these individuals to be super happy together, they're going to, instead of being happy with those individuals, devise a whole matrix that they stole from Metatron to figure out how they can build a system that harnesses the energy of indigenous individuals. And this is now where you get Doctor Strange 2, where America Chavez is literally being hunted down by Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange. They both wanted to drain her powers because she has the ability to do what they can't. So white people are objectively showing you in Doctor Strange 2 that indigenous individuals have the ability to take their minds interdimensional, to just travel through dimensions on their own. And white people who consider themselves magicians, they harvest, they cannibalize indigenous peoples for this energy. That's what Doctor Strange 2 is about, and that's what the entire creation of America is about. That's why she's literally America Chavez. It's pretty gnarly how blatant it is. But you gotta know, you have to be aware of these things. If you're not aware of these things, it just seems like mindless entertainment that they spent however many millions of dollars to get in front of your face. So this is how Masons are building their matrix. By stealing all of these indigenous ideas from the Library of Alexandria and Mesoamerica, from the Emerald Tablets, from indigenous cultures all across the world, they've decided to create the Holy Bible and Marvel to sell us and colonize, really, sell us on our idea of what a superhero should be. And by doing that, they colonize our idea of spirituality. Because now we all feel like we need a superhero. All of us as spaces feel like we need to be saved from our own space. And now this is where our minds get child abducted by the system that taught us to do that. And now we can see why these religious systems are super into child abduction and super into trafficking. No wonder they're spiritually teaching you that you need to be saved from your space. That is justification for abduction, objectively. You should feel happy alone in your space. Hermes would teach you, hermetically, that you are in heaven when you're alone. You can only be in heaven when you're alone. So you're only going to be happy alone in your space. So you should be alone in your space. No one should be teaching you that you're not alone in your space and that you're not happy alone in your space. But that's fundamentally what these religions have done, because that's how they're building this Masonic matrix out of rape, genocide, slavery, and overall oppression, ignorance. So all technology is based in nature. Nature is the first technology that one space uses to connect with another space. So now when you see that we have telephones down here in nature, it's only replicating what nature was already doing, which is using vibrational signals to send informational light from one circumstance into another circumstance. Indigo represents how we all create light that our spirits want to see, because we are connecting our egos and our souls, our red and our blue. Everything we can see, everything we can go inside of, is created through esoteric sex, the combination of two opposite yet harmonious energies, masculine and feminine, yang and yin, fire and water, positive and negative. The wisdom of indigo is knowing that spirit creates color because it wants other spirits to see who it is. Emotionally, indigo vibrates at a frequency that inspires sincerity, integrity, deep concentration, and even deeper introspection. Mentally, indigo shows us how to meditate upon our creations so that we can realize that all the physical lights in life are manifested by metaphysical first eyes of spaces that want to see their imaginations brought to reality with spaces outside of their own. Now, these are the positive sides of indigo. On the negative side, indigo can inspire a spirit to get lost in their desires and addicted to fantasies. So if you, as an infinitely indigenous individual, would like to learn how you can decolonize your mind and decolonize your eye so you can manifest the life of your dreams and chase your genes to make your visions a reality, then visit chaseyourgenes.com and check out our online courses and just read through the website. We have a lot of free information before you even have to invest any of your hard-earned money, okay? All right, I'm here for you. So I'll see you in the next video. Much love. Next time we will get into violet, the seventh most conscious color of YGBIV BB.